Now, there's this wonderful concert coming along, Stand With Ukraine charity concert. It's at Her Majesty's Theatre on Saturday, the 8th of October, so Saturday week. I have the honour of emceeing it with young Ilya, who's one of the organisers at just the age of, incredibly, 17. And he's a marvellous kid from Emmanuel College and very key to the Ukrainian community. We must all join with the Ukrainians in their hour of dire need, thanks to the perfidy of Putin's Russian invasion. This is the second concert of this kind. It aims to raise $50,000 for Ukrainian refugees here and also Ukrainians back in their home country. Let's meet Natalya Boujenko, who is Ukrainian and a singer. Hello.
Hi, Peter. Thank you for having me.
What are you singing in the show?
So I'm part of a choir called Kashtan, and of course we will start with the anthem, and we have another song, which is an old song dating back to 100 years when Ukraine was fighting Russian occupation then, and we will end with a folk song about a young girl and a young man who can't be together because of the war.
When did you come to Adelaide?
Came to Adelaide now 30 years ago.
30 years ago? Yeah. Wow. And what do you do?
I am a transport planner, a strategic consultant in transport.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And a singer?
Yes, I sing.
Do you have family in Ukraine?
Yes, I do. I have 3 uncles. I also have 6 cousins. And everyone is totally affected by war in different ways, but profoundly so.
I think that President Vladimir
Zelensky
is doing a wonderful job.
He certainly is. He managed to unite all of us together behind the cause. The messaging has been amazing, but also he has cultivated the strength, the belief among the Ukrainian people and the resolve to see this through to the end.
It's terrible, terrible.
It is.
We don't. How many lives have been lost so far, do we know, Natalya?
So various estimates. Under occupied territories, there are no exact numbers to be known because we do not know what the toll is. However, in Mariupol alone, the belief is there could be anywhere between 20,000 to 90,000 civilian persons who have been killed. So the death toll is certainly tremendous. Yeah.
What can we do, because apart from supporting the Ukrainians in concerts like this and in other charities? What can we do?
Well, there is a lot that international community can do. Firstly, by supporting the government's efforts to support Ukraine in any way possible. Yes. There are also many charities and third parties that collect the funds and buy military equipment, protective equipment to help Ukraine end this war as soon as possible. So, for example, one of those charities is called Save Lives in Ukraine, so savelives.in.ua. So they purchase a lot of military equipment. If you would rather donate to humanitarian causes, ukrainecrisisappeal.org, which has been set up in Australia with Caritas and Rotary Club behind it, is a great charity. Good. So far they've gathered $6 million and continue to do so. But also, we need to talk more about the situation in Ukraine to raise the awareness and the understanding.
The resilience of the Ukrainians has been extraordinary, you know, as they fight for their homeland against this dreadful invasion.
It has been, and I think that's what really has surprised the world. In the initial days of the war, it was obvious that everyone was waiting and watching. Lots of people were predicting, commentators around the world, that Ukraine will fall between 3 and 7 days. Russia certainly expected that it will fall within a week. And of course, it hasn't happened. So we are fighters. We have fought for our independence for over 1,000 years, and we will continue to do so.
Are the sanctions sufficient, Natalya?
Sanctions work, but they work very slowly. We know that they're very leaky, so they work on some fronts, but there are other sources of income for Russia, which is very, very hard to prevent all of those sources from continuing. So we know they're working, but it's just been a very slow process.
I think it's unfair that a lot is being blamed. You know, the price of cream goes up in the supermarket, and it's blamed on the Ukrainian war. You know, this is ridiculous.
It certainly is the case, but at the same time, what is the price of freedom?
Indeed. Well said, Natalya Boujenko, who is a Ukrainian in South Australia and will appear at this concert. Also, we will see the work, some extraordinary work by Drew Lenman, a photographer. Hello, Drew.
Good evening, Peter.
You took those marvellous pictures of the Norwood Pool.
A long, long time ago, yes.
Beautiful pictures.
Thank you.
I think when it still had the diving board. Do you go there? You swim there, do
Yes,
you?
I do, yeah.
I love that. It's one of my sacred sites, but I haven't now been there in many years, and I kind of gave up when they took the diving board away, and the councillors responsible for that in the Norwood, Payneham and St Peter's Council took a lot of pleasure and a lot of joy out of the world for young people.
Good old health and safety.
They just loved that diving board, and you know there'd been one accident since that pool was opened in 1957. One accident, which was the fault of an adult man. That was the only accident from anyway. It's still a beautiful pool, and luckily it's still there.
It's a hidden treasure.
It is a hidden treasure. And did you had Orange Lane Studios?
We did, yes, for many, many years, several decades.
They're near Orange Lane in Norwood.
That's right behind the old Norwood Hotel.
Yes, of course, and the market. I missed that market. Were you there when the market was there?
Yes.
Wish that had stayed. Yes, and now it's all houses then. Centrelink.
Yes.
And the first clients of that Centrelink were the people that it put out of business in the market. How long have you been a photographer, David?
Well, many
Drew,
decades.
sorry.
That's all right. My great-grandfather was a photographer, and all of my generations down to me. I got involved in advertising photography and then further into construction photography, time-lapse work with many of Adelaide's main constructions with regard to major infrastructure particularly. And I truly enjoy it because I've literally got myself into a niche territory where I know what clients want and they literally tell me to do what I know I need to do.
Max Dupayne did a lot of architectural photography.
Yeah, brilliant stuff.
Brilliant, yes. And so time-lapse, you're taking it. There was a time-lapse of Her Majesty's Theatre being redeveloped where this concert is.
Yes.
Was magnificent. That was video. This is still.
Well, stills that are then compiled into video.
Oh, I see.
One photograph.
Of course, yes.
Every 20 minutes over 2 years then adds up to quite an interesting sequence.
Do you set that up? You leave the camera there?
That's in one particular instance. Then you might have a camera on a tripod doing one photograph every second for a more sped up version in well, let's imagine a crane being used to lift huge concrete slabs or steel beams into position.
And that's essentially, it's the oldest kind of animation, isn't it?
Well, it is, but when it's sped up like that, it's far more interesting to look at, and things like that are very glacial. But if you zip them along, people show more of an active interest.
And the builders want this.
They do.
Yes, of course. Keeping an eye on their workers too.
That's. I didn't say that.
Now you've done this project, which is called Imagine Our City, which you can see online, imagineourcity.au, and in that you have a panorama of the city of Adelaide taken from, is it near Colonel Light?
No, it's way over on the top of a building in Strangways Terrace at the western end,
right,
looking over the North Adelaide Golf Course.
Right, I see. It's a panorama of the city of Adelaide from the Adelaide Oval right down to beyond Samri on North Terrace, and it is on fire. It's as though it's been bombed.
Well, to put it in Natalya's words, it's been obliterated. That's what has happened in Ukraine, and that's what I wanted to try and bring a sense of for Adelaide people to get an empathy for a series of problems that obviously have been happening for far too long
in Ukraine. So we look at our own city and think this is what's happening in that country.
That's right. Lots of cities have been razed to the ground, and even though Russia initially was saying we are not targeting civilian infrastructure, in reality, lots of cities are completely wiped off a map forever.
And it's a salient reminder of war and what can happen, and it's unimaginable in our city. But then it might have been unimaginable in Ukraine too.
Yeah.
No one could have predicted the extent of hatred that we have witnessed and experienced in Ukraine towards the people, civilian people, towards the country, and that has been truly shocking.
I feel for the Russian soldiers who are being made. I'm sure some of them are zealots and believe Putin, but I'm sure many doubt, and many don't want to be there. Natalya, do you have a view on that?
Well, statistically, 70 to 80% of Russian population support Putin and support Russia's approach to the war. So we have to take it and look at it at what it is. And even if you're in a Russian army at the front, you do have an option. You do have an option not to kill. You do have an option to to negotiate to become a prisoner in Ukraine and wait the war out. You can escape from the front. So there are always choices.
There are indeed. And how do the Russians justify this, Natalya?
30 years of propaganda and cultivating the falsehoods, multi-layered machine of propaganda where those messages are spread through various sources. Lots of things that are being said are laughable, yet the society believes it. So there is hatred towards democracy. There is hatred towards Ukraine among the Russian populace. And the reasons behind it is that there is, I believe, that Ukraine, for example, would have attacked Russia if Russia didn't attack Ukraine. Things like that, even though Ukrainian army was 10 times smaller than Russian and certainly didn't have anywhere near the amount of resources, nor the motive for attacking Russia. And then, of course, there is this NATO expansion, Russia wanting to control the political path and self-determination in Ukraine.
How did you get involved with the concert, Drew Lenman?
Well, in fact, I'll go back a bit further, if I may, Peter. Back at the early stages of this war, and we have to call it Putin's war, I think.
Yes, indeed.
One of the things that I really wanted to do was to play an active role in some sort of help in terms of raising awareness and funds. And I felt rather impotent because what could I do over here in Adelaide? And because of all of my work in the construction industry over the last 10 years, I did the Adelaide Oval, the new Royal Adelaide Hospital, all time-lapse, a series of hotels in the city. I've had this sense of thinking, well, why don't I turn it all around? I've always had to think laterally in order to get a different perspective. So I thought, rather than doing what I've always done, making buildings look beautiful, why don't I make them look as though they've been devastated, as if they're in Ukraine? And accordingly, I was lucky that it just hit on me that I had the skills with digital technology. I've been doing that since the early 90s, to be able to cut and paste smoke, flames, rubble. I went to one of the advertising agencies in Adelaide, Black Sheep, who were very generous and helped me have access to a whole lot of imagery from Ukraine. That particular imagery was illustrating buildings that had been damaged and devastated. I was able to take 40 or 50 of those pictures and cut and paste certain elements into Adelaide's.
Oh, so this is actual Ukrainian?
There are a lot of Ukrainian parts within the picture that you see there. There's something in the middle that looks like a car park. It's actually a car park in Ukraine, but it's an ordinary building here in Adelaide. So I had to sort of meld that in. There's been a lot of transformation of perspective and things like that as well, in order to make them fit.
It must be interesting with your work when you're inside the building, you're inside the process of that building. It's interesting to me.
Well, it was a very difficult thing to address initially, and then I found the opportunity really lay in cutting and pasting black holes that were the blown out sides of a building that was in Ukraine, and putting that into a building like the Samri Centre, the Samri building, etc., and then embedding flames within, and then having smoke coming out at the top of it.
You haven't done the Lang Walker development at the Festival Centre?
I did have a lot to do with the casino when that was taking its...
Or that horrible gold hotel.
I won't comment on that. Although I will say that it has taken a hit in this series of explosions.
The concert is at Her Majesty's Theatre on October the 8th, Saturday, October the 8th, and I'll be comparing it with Ilya, and I'm honoured to do so, and there'll be lots of entertainment, the various choirs, performers, dancers, and your photographs, Drew.
Yes, indeed. Can I make a point before I don't get the opportunity?
Yes.
To just tail off on what I started to mention earlier about the fact that I felt impotent. I also felt that the words that will always ring in my ears, and I don't know exactly who said it, it was accredited to Edmund Burke, an Irishman, but that might have been wrong. And the saying goes, the only thing necessary for triumph, for the triumph of evil, is for good men to do nothing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said. Thank you very much. And I'll see you on the night. Drew Lenman and Natalya Boujenko. I'm looking forward to hearing you sing.
Thank you. Stand with Ukraine charity concert. Please find the tickets. Hope to see you there.
Indeed.
And our website is imagineourcity.au.
Thank you very much, both of you. Good. I'm looking forward to that concert at the beautiful Her Majesty's Theatre. Yes, so we hope for a full house to raise funds for Ukrainian refugees and for Ukraine proper. I want to say the Ukraine. You see, I know you're shaking your head. We've all been trained not to say that. But yes, I know that the Ukrainians don't like that, which is fair enough. Can we still say the Crimea? No. I don't know how that started, the Ukraine, but anyway, it is Ukraine.